I apologize for that, everybody. My mic was not turned on. So let me try that one more time. So Yate, it's good. Let me turn off my phone here. I apologize for that. Yate, my relatives. It's good to be with you today. This is, what day is it? It's Thursday, March 11th, and it's just after noon here in Washington, D.C., and I'm speaking to you from my home, which is located on the traditional lands of the Piscataway. And I want to honor and thank the Piscataway for their stewardship of these lands. And I want to publicly state how humbled I am to be living on these lands today. There's a lot going on right now. We are now going into a first full year of our global pandemic. And that will be marked later by a speech today by President Biden. And we are also he's about ready to sign a new stimulus bill, which will have a lot of benefits for many people across the country. And then there, of course, is a lot of other things going on, which if you've been following me online, you notice I've been commenting on both the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle interview and the royal family and the accusations of racism, as well as just things going on here in the US. So I wanted to talk briefly about a lot of these things, but I mainly just wanted to, first of all, acknowledge that we're a year now into this global pandemic. And it was literally a year ago this week that I returned from my last campaign trip during the 2020 campaign. I was in Portland, Oregon, and returned on March 8th and had a speaking event that evening here in DC. And that was the last thing that I did. That trip to Portland was the last public event that I was involved in, and the last time I've traveled. I've since been home. As you know, we shut down our campaign that week. We shut down our campaign travel and our public campaigning and went strictly online. The other candidates, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, they continued campaigning publicly for a few weeks yet until about the end of March, maybe the third or fourth week of March. But our campaign shut down right after I returned from that trip to Portland. Yeah, so now we're a year in. And it's been a fascinating journey. I think I've used one word repeatedly over the past several weeks, which is this feeling of how mundane things have become. And I know that that's a specific experience that I've been having because I work mostly from home, and a lot of the stuff I do online, my public speaking and other things that I'm involved in, means there's a lot of things just that happen online. And even my speaking, which I still do, but an event used to take 2 or 3 days to travel, set up, and do the event and then come home. Now it takes a couple hours. And so it's changed drastically the way that our lives have been impacted. And of course, there's a lot less speaking events now than there were even a year ago, or even a year and a half ago, just because people aren't gathering. And the transition to events happening online has happened much more slowly. So yeah, one of the words I've used frequently over the past year has been, our past few months has been, things have become very mundane. Also, it's been a hard several months. We've lost several relatives on both my mother and my father's side of the family, and have had to deal with funerals and, of course, the grief and the saying goodbye of that. And that has impacted nearly everybody, not just here in America or in the United States, but around the globe, as this pandemic has been really wreaking havoc on a global scale. And so I just want to acknowledge that we are still in the midst of this pandemic. And even though some states like Texas and Mississippi and others are beginning to open up, and even places like California and New York are relaxing some of their requirements, we're still in the midst of this pandemic. There still is a majority of the nation that has not been vaccinated, myself and my family included. And we still need to continue to social distance and to wear masks and to have our gatherings in public be smaller or not existent at all. And I want to encourage people to continue to be be committed to protecting your health and the health of the most vulnerable in your communities. They are still recommending that even if you're vaccinated, that you continue to wear masks in public and you continue to protect yourself and the health of those around you. Of course, with the variants, they still don't know how many of those, what the effectiveness rate with the vaccines are on the new variants. And so there's a lot that's really unknown yet. So we still need to be vigilant about these things. But we also can have some sense of relief, right? For literally the first time in about a year, there is beginning to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And we are expecting to have actually a flood of vaccines, I've been reading and hearing on the news, in the next few months, as the US government has continued to purchase, unfortunately, more than we need as a nation. And of course, we need to be concerned about making sure that not just our country is vaccinated, but the entire globe gets vaccinated. And that's something that we need to do if we're going to address a global pandemic. We need to make sure that the most vulnerable, not just in our own communities, get the help they need, but the most vulnerable around the globe get the help that they need. So yeah, I wanted to just acknowledge that, and I want to acknowledge especially those, like I just expressed myself, who are dealing with grief. You know, I read one article that said we had one of the highest death rates in the history of our country in this past year. I don't have that exact stat, but I know, you know, we've lost hundreds of thousands to COVID-19, as well as, of course, all the other things that take life throughout the year, sicknesses and addiction and accidents and things like that. And so we have to acknowledge that most everyone nationally has been touched by grief. And we need to not ignore that, but continue to move through that, acknowledge it, and make sure that we are giving those emotions and those events the proper attention they need, so that we can deal with them in a healthy way. Though later this week, probably early next week, I will talk more about the stimulus that is scheduled to be signed by President Joe Biden tomorrow. He is signing the House and the Senate have now passed the $1.9 trillion stimulus package, which includes a lot of provisions, $1,400 payments for most Americans earning $75,000 or less, or $150,000 as a couple. It also has an increased income tax credit for children. I think it's up to $3,600 for children under age 6, and $3,000 for children under age 17. And also this stimulus, unlike others, dependent adults, children 17 and older, as well as dependent elderly adults who are being taken care of by their children or other family members, they are also now eligible for this $1,400 stimulus. And so that will make a huge difference for a lot of people I know. And so, yeah, there is some good things that are happening. I don't have an opinion on the full stimulus package yet. I don't know everything that's been included in there. It's a massive bill. But as I continue to learn more about it, I will continue to share and talk about that some. But even for myself, I'm grateful that the stimulus is being passed. You know, these, regardless of, and I think what fascinates me is how the Republicans have been in lockstep opposition to this stimulus, even though a majority of Americans not only need it, but welcome it. I know even my own family, for our own expenses and our own needs, you know, my primary job is public speaking. And public speaking events, not only do they happen less now, but they also pay a lot less. And so some of these stimulus measures actually help our family to meet our own expenses and cover our monthly expenses here. And so I'm very much aware how many Americans need this sort of help, even though the light is at the end of the tunnel as far as the pandemic and the economy. Again, for the 1%, it's working great, but for so many people, Not only is it about getting the economy going again, but now it's about dealing with a year of unemployment or underemployment and increased expenses and things like that. And so, yeah, there's a lot we need to do. And so I am actually very grateful for the stimulus that's been passed. And I'm grateful that there is some way to begin moving our nation forward through this. The last thing I want to talk about and just mention briefly here is, and this is a hard one to kind of bring up, right? Because we don't feel like we're in a crisis. And this is one of the challenges with President Biden and his administration as compared to the Trump administration. You know, for the past 4 years, our nation has been in a constant crisis. And now Joe Biden is doing exactly what he promised to do, which is to maintain the status quo. And I remember this morning I was listening to the news and I heard a comment on one of the stories that Democrats were once again trying to push through some gun control legislation, and they wanted to enhance background checks. And I remember it's been almost a year, or not a year, it's been almost 4 years since, right, I remember at the end of the Obama administration, that was a very big thing that was being spoken about and talked about all the time. And during the Trump years, there were a lot of other crises that were going on. But right, this used to be one of the biggest debates we had, was gun control. And even during our campaign, one of the things that we talked about is, our nation goes back and forth about gun control, but no one wants to have the conversation that our Second Amendment is dripping in implicit racial bias and even white supremacy. No one wants to have that conversation. They love to debate and scream at each other about gun control and legislation and you know the right to keep and bear arms and the right to establish a militia, a well-regulated militia. They love to debate those things, but no one wants to address the fact that that whole amendment is dripping in implicit racial bias and surrounded with white supremacy. And so hearing that comment this morning, it reminded me, that's the status quo. That's what our nation debates. It doesn't debate the root of the problem. It just debates the symptoms. And that's what's happening again. You know, I pointed something out very similar with the interview with Meghan and Harry just this past week, and what people described, even Oprah, as a bombshell, right? She had this look of shock on her face that there was evidence that there was racism within the royal family. And it's like, how can you be surprised about that? Right? This is a monarchy of one of the most colonial nations in the history of the world, Great Britain, right? Because the sun never set on their kingdom. The doctrine of discovery, not only here in North America, but around the globe. To act surprised that there is still racism running through the veins of that family and through that monarchy, that's not surprising. This is what they do. This is their history. And so, again, even to see a Black interviewer act shocked that there was racism within this, it's like, no, this is not shocking. I know we like to live in this world, even where President Obama, right, he likes to say that we the people now means all the people. And Joe Biden loves to misquote the Declaration of Independence, that we hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. That's not what those documents say. Racism, sexism, white supremacy are rampant in England, in most of our NATO allies, in the United States, in Canada. This is how these nations were founded. And it's never been dealt with. And so I think this past week I've just been kind of saddened to realize things really are going back to the status quo, right? We're not in crisis anymore. And so we're going back to the old debates we had 4 years ago. We're going back to the old shock and things we're surprised about, like that there might be racism within the royal family in the UK. You know, we're I think just this past week, right, we've heard headlines of Elon Musk. First, his wealth dropped by $25 billion due to the drop in Tesla's stock price, and now it raised by, or dropped by 27 billion, and then it raised yesterday, I think, by 25 billion. It's like, who the hell cares, right? Elon Musk could lose $100 billion, and it would make no difference on how he lives his life. The man has so much money, right? This white landowning man from the 1%. Who gives a crap? Right? But this is what we're now being told is news. This is what we're now being told is concerning, what we need to be cared about, what we need to care about. We need to have debate about gun control. We need to, and not, it's also bad because it allows us to just continue to live in this world where we don't know we have a problem. I've done several events over the past few days. Yesterday, I did an event for the UCC where they asked me to critique the colonialism and the climate response of the Biden-Harris administration. And I think what was fascinating about doing that, I enjoyed it. It was good. It should be online in a few days. But what was fascinating about doing that is that I realized I was just going through my campaign points of the critique. And now, instead of saying this is what Joe Biden stands for, this is what he's advocating for, it's like, well, this is what he's doing because, look, this is what he promised. He promised he wasn't going to change anything at a foundational level. He promised he was going to just reestablish the status quo. When you have a nation that's rooted in a doctrine of discovery, has a history of genocide and ethnic cleansing of native peoples and enslavement and dehumanization of African people, when you have a nation that is rampant in racism, sexism, and white supremacy, and then you have a president who is running with a white landowning male president who's running with the promise to restore the soul of America, that this is what we're getting. Where we're not fixing the heart of the problem. And we're actually being told our problems aren't nearly as bad as we thought they were. And this is what's lulling people to sleep. This is what's, we're just getting back into our partisan corners once again, and we're not really engaging with the things at the level they need to be engaged with. And so I'm thinking very intently about what we need to do to address these things. I don't just want to spend the next 4 years protesting and critiquing, but nor do I want to play the political game of just, let's see who can raise the most money, and we look at what Donald Trump's doing and we look at what other people are doing, and it's like, yeah, that's not going to fix this problem either. And so I've been thinking through very hard what I want my response to be and how I want to address this. And a lot of it will be through what I'm doing right now, which is sitting down with my second cup of coffee and having a discussion, a deeper discussion about these issues, and continue to put these issues in front of the American people. Not asking you for money, not asking you to even vote a certain way at this moment in time, right? We're not even in an election period. I'm not running for anything, but just to create this common memory, to deliver a continued analysis of what's going on, and to continue to point out these are the challenges that we're facing and these are the things we need to do to address them. And so I'm going to continue to do that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm actually streaming today, not just on my personal channels, but even on my older campaign channels. I'm streaming on Mark Charles 2020, both on YouTube and on Facebook. I've been streaming a lot more frequently solely on my personal accounts, and I'm going to put those links in the chat. So if you want to follow me there and see what I'm doing more closely on a daily basis, you can. I'll first put the link to my Facebook, my personal account on Facebook. It's my page there, and then I'll also put my link to my personal account on YouTube. And I'm pretty active on these accounts almost on a daily basis. I also opened a TikTok account that I'm using right now under Wireless Hogan as well. Wireless Hogan is my username on almost all social media for my personal accounts. But I stream live pretty regularly on both YouTube and Facebook on the accounts I just shared there. And you're welcome to follow me there. I will continue to try to stream on these other accounts, maybe 2 or 3 times a month, just to keep people updated on what's going on and to continue to give some of this political analysis. Again, I'm not running for anything right now. I'm not raising money for anything. I just want to continue to put this analysis in front of people so that we can continue to find a way to move forward in a better way. If you've also been following my accounts, my personal accounts, you notice I've been watching the sunrises a lot more recently. And that's been incredibly healing. There's a point, it's about 4 miles from my house, not very far. I'm able to drive there in the mornings and overlooking the Potomac River, watch the sunrise to the east over the lands of the Piscataway where I'm living. And this is something I wrote about in my book, Unsettling Truth. This is something I did for 11 years back on the reservation. And this has probably been one of the most transformative spiritual disciplines of my entire life. And I struggled to find a space in DC to watch the sunrise. There's not a lot of good spaces to do it within the city, no space within walking distance of my house. And so I finally decided that I needed to kind of have that centering again. And last week, I decided I was going to go find a place that I could go to more regularly. And so I found this point about 4 or 5 miles from my house. I can drive there within about 15 minutes. And it's a great place to watch the sunrise. I've been streaming that live and taking more photos. And I can't do it every day because there's a lot more clouds here. Back in Arizona on the reservation, I would post pictures almost daily of the sunrise because it's the desert, right? And we could see the horizon and it was clear almost every day. Here, there's a lot more cloud cover. There's a lot more moisture. And so probably over half the time you can't see the sunrise because of the cloud cover. So I will be posting it when I am able to get out there and watch the sunrise. And I'm hoping to do it at least a few times a week when the weather permits it. But even in the past week, it's been a very centering thing for me. Very centering for me just to, again, remind myself that we are not the center of all this, right? That's what's so humbling about watching the sunrise. You can't stop it. You can't put it on hold. You can't make it wait for you. It happens. And it's beautiful and it's gorgeous. But whether you're there or not, it doesn't wait for anyone. It happens. And you can either be there and enjoy it and live into it, or you can ignore it and miss it. And it's just a very humbling reminder that for all of our technology, for all of our resources, for all of the things that we've developed and accomplished as people, as humans, over the past few centuries, we still can't control everything. And we need to remind ourselves of that. We need to remember that we are here to be a part of this environment, this creation, this world we've been gifted, we've been blessed to live in, but we can't control it. And so I've been allowing myself to remember that. And I've been allowing myself to live into that reality more just by watching the sunrise more these past few days. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I know there's a lot more going on. I appreciate the people who joined me this morning. Andrea, it's good to see you. Tam and Liz and others who've been chatting on here. Phil, thanks for joining this live stream today. I hope all of you have a very good day, and I look forward to engaging more with you on social media. And I invite you to follow me both on Facebook and on YouTube if you want to catch my more regular live streams on my personal accounts. Other than that, please continue to social distance, remain vigilant, protecting your health and the health of those most vulnerable around you. And remember to take the grief of the past year seriously. We can't ignore it and pretend like that didn't happen. Almost every single one of us were touched by grief, whether in the loss of a loved one, the loss of career, or the loss of other opportunities. We've all been touched by grief in some very real and tangible ways, and we need to provide space to acknowledge that. Grief has a way of demanding over time that it be acknowledged. And so if we can take the space to acknowledge it, to feel it, to grieve it, it allows us to move forward in a much more healthy way. So walk in beauty, my relatives. And may we learn how to walk in beauty together. Ahiahat and hakonet.